Ah,
Hey, you
there
got
we
me?
go.
All right, cool,
There's,
cool.
there's the good-looking guy.
Thanks for the compliment. I'll take that.
Hey, Vinny, welcome. So we're getting people joining in. Awesome on this Sunday, the 19th of September. And yeah, so we're going to be talking about leading with a purpose. We got Fadi. Fadi, one of my dear friends and mentors, has joined in as well. Hi, Fadi. So while we're waiting for a couple more people to join, I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of a background on what we're going to be talking about today. So leading with a purpose, it's like how can we achieve beyond our expectations when we're doing things, not just for ourselves, but something beyond us. I always talk about in my book, Break Free, which if some of you haven't read, make sure you pick that up. I know Mustafa is a big fan, but I talk about making yourself the number one priority, and the key behind that is if you have a cup that's overflowing, then you have a lot more to give, right? So it's always take care of the self first. But once you've taken care of yourself, it's how can you have maximum impact in your relationships, in your business, with your friends, with your community. And when I was thinking of this topic, my dear friend Mustafa Koita popped up because I've known him for many years. I still remember when his brand had two SKUs, right? He was only selling two different types of milk, which was a regular milk and a skim milk. And I remember the packaging, blue and one was pink, right? If I'm not mistaken.
You got
And
it.
and it's grown to what it is today. And so where he's got a lot of SKUs, different sizes. He's got the larger ones, the smaller ones, chocolate, and for those like me who are vegan, he's even got the soy, oat, almond, coconut. I believe there are a couple more, but there's quite a few non-dairy milks. So I thought of Mustafa because I've seen him grow his business with passion and purpose. And so Mustafa, from those early days, tell us how the journey began. What was your reason for starting this company?
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for the update, and thanks for inviting me to be on the show. Look, a lot of the reason in the beginning or the purpose evolved over time. So the reason that I had when I started the company is actually different than, at stage 1, 2, 3, or 4. And it changed, I think, as I grew as a person, as I matured, and as my company matured, although I feel like I'm still like a kid, deep down inside. But in the beginning, the real purpose of the company wasn't actually producing milk, and it wasn't to make families eat healthier. It was actually for freedom, and I'd been working in the defense business for over a decade. I've been doing, working as a professional, getting a normal salary. I had had a good salary, had a great cush lifestyle, but I really didn't control my destiny, and I had a boss and I had a board or, someone that I had to report to, and I couldn't really move as fast as I wanted. I couldn't move in the way I wanted. And so initially it was freedom. I just wanted freedom from the workforce.
I knew that's amazing because a lot of people, when they move from the workforce to entrepreneurship, all of a sudden you have so much more to take care of. You got to take care of people's salary. You got your HR, your operations, your sales, your marketing, your kind of everything. Whereas before, when you're in the corporate world, you had your own silo and you were very focused in that one area.
Yeah.
But you didn't. It's amazing that the fear didn't hold you back.
No, well, listen, hey, it was scary, right? So don't get me wrong. I mean, when you leave a cush lifestyle with a steady paycheck, you're scared, because you're giving up something that's known, and you're jumping into the unknown. You're jumping into cold water with no lights on, And so what I found is that I was like 90%, I was like 80% scared and 20% excited when I made the jump. But something in my heart told me this is the place that I need to be. And what I started doing is focusing on small wins and small steps. And since I knew my purpose at the time was freedom and was not to build this, milk company that's in 10 countries right now with 30 SKUs and all this kind of stuff, I was like, how do I just turn my little investment into something that sustains a lifestyle? So I've got some freedom. and so that allowed me to take some baby steps. I think if my purpose hadn't evolved and I had too grand of a purpose in the beginning, I probably would have failed, so maybe that shed some light onto how I was thinking about it.
But I love that, how that highlights the desire of people to get freedom. I mean, I was just coaching a client of mine today, and he talked about feeling suffocated, feeling tied down, feeling restricted, and that caused anger, and that caused emotions that he wasn't happy with. But even though it was not easy to go towards freedom, because it meant that you had to face fear head on. It was the passion or the drive for it was huge, that it gave him the energy to take those steps. No matter how well we do in the corporate world or as an entrepreneur, ultimately we all seek to be free.
Yeah, I think that should be a t-shirt and a bumper sticker. Are you gonna start? Oh, go ahead.
You talked about your initial purpose, then. So what evolved? Because you said you had multiple stages.
Yeah, so when you asked the question, it really made me think about purpose. So I think initially I just wanted to get out of corporate America. I wanted my freedom. I wanted to make some decisions on my own and control my destiny. And then what happened is, we started growing, right? And then I finally, like about a year later, jumped into the milk business, and started producing organic milk and whatnot. And quickly realized that there are a lot of trials and tribulations in running a business. Cash flow is probably the first one that comes up with any entrepreneur. And so my purpose was, how do I survive? What do I need to do to make sure I don't die with this limited amount of money? Because I want to get the freedom, So money and cash flow is what my purpose evolved into. And when you're starting a company, you get a lot of advice from a lot of people. And I think I learned that I needed to take advice from the right people. So, instead of taking advice from the president of some big company who's never started from scratch, probably a bad person to ask advice from, But when I talked to other entrepreneurs in the food business who'd started companies from scratch, there was a number of ones in EO. There's some friends that I had through Exposure and Endeavor. Those are the right people that I got advice from. So my purpose was how to survive, and so I was learning sort of the trials and tribulations of cash flow and cash flow management is pretty much the number one thing. And then as we grew and became successful, I would say phase 3, as I started focusing on this market that I was passionate about, which was family and kids, and how do I give them the healthy living that my family and kids had been, able to get, because we traveled to the US and been exposed to all these markets with a lot of healthy eating. And so my purpose then evolved from surviving to, focusing a little bit more on this new customer base. And then, as we grew and when we got to 30 employees, I was like, well, how do I make my employees happy? When it was COVID, how do I make sure my infrastructure is happy? And what's funny about the whole thing is that I started with the purpose of freedom. I evolved to like, hey, I need to get cash flow and survive. Then I started focusing on my customer. And now as we're scaling the business, unlike a lot of businesses, we haven't taken any outside investment, So now we're scaling, right, to go to 100 million and, things like that. And usually the easy thing to do is to raise money. And we're still trying to do it without raising capital or debt for that matter. And so my purpose comes back to freedom, right? Because I don't want another investor, and I want to have the ability to be free and make my own decisions and things like that. So that's the short answer, of how purpose evolved.
And when you get your happy customers sending you messages about how much they're enjoying the milk and the impact it's making on the families, that must be a great driver for you and the team to continue doing what you're doing.
No, absolutely, Saahil. It does drive you. I think it validates what you're doing, because sometimes you're doing as an entrepreneur, you're doing 100 things at once. You're never really looking at your wins, right? Every time something great happens, like I'll do a year and we'll increase our sales, or we'll open up a new country, or we'll get, like the article in the Wall Street Journal was a great win for us, or Harvard Business School. All these things happen. And as an entrepreneur, and as a lot of them are listening, they're just focused on the next problem, right? We're just like, oh shit, what do I have to do next? I got this other thing coming up, or, I got to open up this new category. And so I tell other entrepreneurs that, sometimes you need to take a second and pat yourself on the back. And the easiest way to do it, and I've done it with my employees, is to say, hey, we're at a management team meeting, and I remember we had some huge problem come up, and we sort of plan for them now. But I say, think about where we were exactly a year ago. And everyone's like, oh my God, we had half the staff, we had no cash in the bank, or this guy was about to delist us, or this problem, or whatever. And now we have like systems in place and stuff, but we're still focused on the challenges ahead. But sometimes you have to stop, you have to look back. And to your question, when you get those letters in from like mothers who say, I love your lactose-free milk, it allowed my child to drink, milk again, or, your organic almond milk tastes so great because I had an issue with dairy, or, this and that. Those are nice reminders, and you're right. They do keep you motivated. They give you that extra fuel, to put on your fire.
And, and keeping in sync with the title, leading with the purpose. How does, you talked about even taking, making sure that you take care of the team members, especially through the pandemic, etc. But when you have this purpose of yours, whether it's freedom or, providing healthy alternatives or milk to your consumers, your clients, how has that changed you as a leader?
Yeah, I think it's changed me a lot. And I think as, as any person, as as a parent, as a family member, as an entrepreneur, with time you grow, you mature, you make all your mistakes, and you learn from them. And I think I've become a lot more empathetic, as I've grown. I think our employees are the number one example that I lead with, because our employees are the ones that are talking to the customers, and obviously customers are first. But like, I'll give you an example. When COVID happened, a lot of people don't know this about us, but we are, our business grew, right? It grew. I was freaked out in the beginning. I thought everything was going to, go to shit. And then luckily, there was some things with healthy eating and shelf-stable milk where we were in the right place at the right time. But I thought about my employees, first, because they were the ones who were doing all the work. And so my philosophy that I didn't have when I was younger, that I do have when I'm older, is that I work for my employees, right? Because they're the ones who are doing stuff for you, and they're my first customer, right? So, for example, during COVID, right when the lockdown happened, within 48 hours, a lot of our employees were freaking out because there was a food shortage and they wanted to get food for their family. So we ended up paying on the third day of the month or first week of the month. We paid everyone's salary up front for the month. We put cash in their bank account so they could feel secure. The second thing that we did is we got Zoom accounts. Finally, the Zoom opened up. So we got Zoom business accounts for every single employee, and we told them to use it for personal use. We said, call your mother, in Europe, or your cousin in Lebanon, or your sister in India, or, and use this business Zoom, because now it's open to talk to your family, because this is when you need to communicate with them the most, and you need to feel good. The third thing that we did is we went out, and these sold out, by the way, in Dubai, but we bought 32 TRX systems, home gym systems, and we sent them to all of our employees because we believe healthy body, healthy mind. So all of our employees had home gym systems, and then we started, within 72 hours, we put a plan in place where we had workout contests and dinners, like, cool, fun dinners, to keep people exercising. We upgraded everyone's broadband at home without even asking them. And we bought desks for those people who had smaller homes, where they didn't have the space. I had a large space, so it was easy for me to work from home. And so we first were like, what do our employees need to make them feel safe and secure at Koita, and then obviously to be productive. And so that mentality of working for your employees is what allows that to do that. Anytime an employee complains about something, we ask why. We get to the real heart of it. Because if you don't treat them well and employees aren't happy, there's no negotiation with your employees. You give them things or take back things, and they're either going to be productive or they're not. So it's one of the two. So I think that, to answer your question, I don't think I was like that earlier. And as I grew as a person, I think I'm a very kind person. I'm very empathetic. I like to put myself in other people's shoes. And I think that's because I got screwed over as an employee my entire life. I had horrible bosses. And so I think because I had horrible bosses, I learned how not to be a bad boss. Does that answer your question?
It absolutely does. And I love what you're saying, because at the end of the day, when you take care of your team members, that's when, it is a team effort. I mean, a leader is somebody who empowers and ensures that the team members are comfortable. Otherwise, if they're having stress about communication, about fitness, about money, whatever it is, they're not going to be able to perform. So by taking care of the team, it enables companies to maximize the impact that they can make in the world. And so when you're trying to have more healthy families, taking care of the team definitely takes you one step closer in that direction.
Yeah. The other thing that I've done is, I also put myself in their shoes. And, as you scale a business and you grow from X to Y, the team that you have in place, the organizational structure and the skill set is different, right? You have different $5 million problems versus $10 million problems versus $20 million problems, And one thing that we've also done is, instead of looking at initially, some people would say, hey, well, you got to get a new person for this job because, this person doesn't have that experience. So one thing that we've also done is we invest a lot in employee development. And it's not just sending them to an accounting class, it's helping them be better people, be better spouses. So we look very holistically. I'm going to give you a plug right now and say, bringing you in to speak to our team was actually one of the most helpful things. Because I went to one of your decluttering talks and I was like, oh man, this is such valuable stuff. I could declutter my life, I can declutter my closet, and I can declutter my company. And so, bringing in speaker, we bring in like an influential speaker or a leadership speaker once a month. And we bring them to a town hall, like you did, and they talk and and it's not just about work stuff, right? Because the one philosophy that, I know you and I and EO have is that, the 5% of your personal bullshit that's going on in your life that's bothering you down or stressing you out affects 95% of your work life, right? So the one thing that we've learned is that with employees, we want to help them holistically, because if they're having a bad day at home with some personal problem, they don't have an outlet to even talk about someone, or they don't feel comfortable opening up to their boss, they're just not going to be productive, So I think that's another way of looking at it that's helped us grow as a company and retain employees as well.
No, I love that. You're investing in your own team and developing them rather than always hiring from outside. So they can grow within the organization as well, right? I mean, everyone is, I always say that as a mountaineer, that we're all scaling our summits of success, whatever that is, whether it's with health, relationships, money, in all areas of life and career. If we have a lot of clutter, as I like to call it, and we're trying to go up the mountain, it slows you down. It requires a lot more energy, and you may not even make it. So by you, as a leader, empowering your team and helping them to remove this mental clutter and not just the physical clutter, it's allowing them to scale their summits of success, which ultimately is allowing the company to scale faster, and that's creating more impact. So there's a knock-on effect that's happening as well. And I remember during lockdown, a lot of people looked at, how do I reduce my costs? Let me fire lots of people. But now you look at some of these companies, they're struggling. They're not able to, get new employees on board now that things are coming back online and growing again.
Yeah. So, yeah. No, I think self-development's really important. By the way, I heard you've got some 5-day program or something going on like that we were looking at. But I mean, those are things that we want to get into. But let me ask you a question. What's going on with the 5-day program? And do I get a piece of it? What's going on with
it? Yeah, I've got a 5-day challenge that's starting tomorrow. In fact, at 7. Yeah,
I didn't get an invitation. Are you keeping me out from this thing? You got to help me out.
You already graduated. You're now have to take the master's course, not the. So yeah. No,
but what's it about?
It's over the next 5 days. It covers the break-free frameworks. I'm providing tools, for people to help remove clutter mentally, with their health, in relationships that they have, and the material world, with the ultimate goal to really break. Because as you said, that 5% that we cannot talk to anyone about, it's really affecting 95% of our day. So if we are able to remove that clutter, it's able to allow us to perform at a much higher level. So from, for about half an hour to 40 minutes each day over the next 5 days, I'm going to share these tools and it's going to be very interactive. People are going to, put in their commitments immediately and then put them into action. And, we're going to watch people grow in 5 days, in just 5 days, transform. So really excited about that.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, cool. All right, well, keep me posted. Were there any other areas that you wanted me to talk about, or any other big questions about Koita and our journey?
Well, I would love to know, since you attended the talk, what was your biggest takeaway? And, what have you implemented, and how has that impacted you in a positive way?
Look, I think that, so when I initially thought about decluttering, and, I went to the course and read your book, initially I was like, oh, it's just decluttering my closet, or our office. So we used to go into the office and just start throwing stuff out. And what's funny is that that's the physical decluttering that you can do. But really, that's what I learned. I guess my key takeaway is decluttering isn't just about physical objects. It's also about the people that you hang out with. It's about your soul. And I think that after that talk, I started thinking about the friendships that I have. I started thinking about, how I invest my time with people, and how I choose, who my close friends are. Everyone says, the people you roll with are going to influence you. So, if you're hanging out with a bunch of losers, there's a high chance that you're going to lose. If you're hanging out with a bunch of winners, you're going to win. And, everyone's definition of a loser and winner is different, right? So I tend to try and think of my close circle of friends as people that are on the up and up, right? So after that talk, I started re-looking at my social friendships. I was like, is this person always positive? Are they negative? Can I help them? What's going on with that? The second area is, is the soul searching aspect of it. I would stress about a lot of things, So what I liked about your book actually is you've got this chart. This you should turn into a bumper sticker or a t-shirt about stress, and it's like a very it's like this little chart. And if you look at it, you'll just lose all your stress, right? Because it's like, here's the stress point. How do you think about it? Can you do something about it? Can you not do something about it? And then you go through. So I really like that part of your book, because just going through it just helped me de-stress. And then the one learning I got from you, and I preach this to a lot of my friends. They're probably tired of me preaching to them. But, when I get something that I think benefits me, I like to overshare it with people. But journaling, has been amazing. You're a big journaler. There's a lot of famous, I read this book about all the top billionaires, and they all journal, right? And so I started journaling. And I found that is a really good way to declutter myself when I'm stressed out about something, because I would just write, 1 or 2 pages in the morning. And I felt like 70% of my stress would go away when I could just unload it, somewhere, and just put it on paper and see my problems or my challenges. And just seeing it just made me feel good. It made me become a little bit more practical about the problem. That made me realize it. And so, my friends tease me back in the States. They're like, hey, Mustafa, how's your diary, going on? But I like to think of it as my journal, with official business in it. But that's really, I would say those are kind of the takeaways is, it's not just about physical decluttering. It's also about the relationships. It's also about decluttering your soul. And I think the journaling were my big takeaways. But it was nice because when I went to your course, I'd read about it, but then you were giving really good examples and stuff like that. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Mustafa. So look, before we wrap up and kind of open up to a couple of questions as well, I do want to share a little bit about how purpose has helped me to lead. I mean, life was good, good on the outside. But inside, there was a lot of noise, a lot of torment. I mean, emotions being blocked, things that weren't being said. And it's like you said, Mustafa, that 5% challenge was affecting my life in all areas. And as I started to remove the clutter in my life through the various tools that are being shared in the book or in the course, or even online on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and all of that, I found that my purpose was to help eradicate violence in the world. Now, people say, well, that you're just one person. How can you make a change? And I always tell someone, and there's this lovely statement that I read somewhere, is that it takes one to change a few to change many, and many to change the world. So if you just through your product, your service, however you serve yourself to the world, if you can just impact one person, it's not just one person because they're going to share with others, and that's going to start. So it's like, how can you make a difference to others? How can you serve to improve the world that we live in and change society? Because as you elevate others, you elevate yourself. And I always tell people, if you chase the excellence about creating impact, the success automatically comes. So I really want to thank everyone for listening in. And for those who are interested in the 5-day challenge, I saw a couple of comments in the notes. If you go on my Instagram page, you will see that there is a link on one of the posts that will allow you to join the Skill Time. It starts tomorrow. So, have a look. And if for whatever reason you can't make it this time round, I believe another one may come along in 3 months' time. But let me open it up to questions. If anyone has questions, we got a minute or two left. Where we have Mustafa online. It's very rare to get him online. So let's take advantage of this and make the most of it. So fire away with your questions or comments. And Mustafa, if you have a question while we're waiting, feel free to ask as well.
Yeah, can I get a coupon or a discount for your next talk? I mean, help me out here. You're not on the entertainer by any chance, are you?
No, but if your milk has benefited my students. Just type in Koita milk, and you'll notice that in the promo code section.
I can't use Saahil 50p or some sort of coupon code. All right, cool.
Asking you a question. When are you visiting us in Kuwait?
Oh, someone's asking when am I going to Kuwait?
Yeah.
So we have an amazing distributor in Kuwait. I love them. They just got us into the co-ops and everywhere else. But I'll probably come when things open up. It's kind of sort of COVID driven. And unfortunately or fortunately, I've also been traveling a lot to the US because we just opened up the US markets. And so that's sort of a very big opportunity, very strategic for the company. So Kuwait's definitely on the list, but I got a couple trips to the US as well first.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Cody Road.
Good plug, Pranav. Good plug.
So we got a question in here. What would you say has been your biggest challenge so far? You want to take this one, or you want me to?
Yeah, I'll take it. I think my biggest challenge has been prioritizing and saying no, right? So I think as an entrepreneur, when you start up, you have a little bit more free time the first, year or two. You have a lot more flexibility, but then you start this train in motion that's going into a certain direction, and you have to manage, cash flow, marketing, sales, supply chain, operations, and all these different departments as you get bigger. And that kind of happened with us year 3 and year 4. We're now in year 8. And so the train's moving, right? And there's all these things happening as you grow. And everyone's like, oh, hey, Mustafa, why don't you make cashew milk? Or, hey, everyone's got a request, and they're my friends. They love me. They ask me for these things. But, they don't understand on the back end that there's there's restrictions, with everything that you can do. You can't launch 100 different SKUs. You got to focus. You can't be in 100 different countries. You got to focus on 10. You have a limited budget, right? And kind of to the whole decluttering model, we had to start saying no to a lot of countries, because every time I open up a country, I have to finance it. I have to send, 20,000 liters of milk to each country minimum if they want to start up, and I have to finance, or they have to finance that and stuff like that. So I think my biggest challenge is, if there's 100 things that we can do on the product side or the customer side or HR, you got to pick the top 3, right? And you got to do those really well. And the other 97 you'll do shit at. So just focus on the 3 and do them well, and then hit the next. And then I think learn how to say no. And I think a lot of people, both personally and professionally, have a hard time saying no to things. It might not feel right, but they just go, even socially and even personally with friends. You're like, okay, yeah, I'll go. I don't know if this has happened to people, but there's always a social accounting. Like, someone invites you to their party, And then they're like, oh, I got to invite them to this party. And then they feel like they have to invite you to this party. It's just like this bullshit cycle that happens. So sometimes you got to know what's right for you, and you got to stop it and say no. And don't be afraid of standing up for no's. You know, it's easy to say yes. It's harder to say no is what I found. Hopefully that answers that question from whoever asked that question.
Yeah, look, I love what you said about the yes and no. You know, you talked about the journaling. Like for me, the morning routine is so sacred that I have to go to bed early because I'm waking up at around 5:30 in the morning, not with an alarm. That's just when I wake up naturally. And so if somebody's asking me, hey,
Superman,
let's go for dinner, we have a 9 o'clock reservation. I said, look, I can come, no problem. But at 10 o'clock, I got to leave. You know, so if you're okay with that, I'm happy to come. So, you know, I guess it's a politer way of saying no, but essentially that it's like, what do you want in life? What is it that where do you want to go? And then you have to stay on course. Now, of course, if there's, you know, if it's Mustafa's birthday and he says, Saahil, come for my birthday, that's a once a year celebration. I'm happy to be there with you, and it's a late night. If you call and you say, hey, let's meet for dinner, and the dinner reservation is late, I'll say, hey, you know, I gotta wait for 5. Let's go.
I feel like I'm getting publicly shamed right now because I didn't invite you to my birthday yesterday. But hey, I hung out with the kids, Saahil. I'm sorry, I couldn't fit you in on that. I was me and the kids. It was just the fam jam. But look, I think you bring up a good point because, you know, you almost, and it doesn't, I don't mean it in a bad way, but you almost have to be a little bit, you need to know what you want, which took me a while as I grew up, and you have to be more selfish, right? You have to be more selfish, or you can't be everything to everyone, or you're screwed. You know, you're just and again, this is not just this is a core personality trait that affects both your personal and your business life. And if you do it in your business, it's just being spread too thin. You know, everyone knows that, whether you own a retail business, or you own a small startup tea shop, or you're working at a bank, or you have a milk company like mine. You know, you gotta know what you want. You gotta be selfish, and you gotta learn how to say no. And I've had to do that. It hurts sometimes, but I just can't be everything to everyone, you know, or I'll get screwed.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. So as we come to a close, Mustafa, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank the audience for, you know, being here with us. It's been such a good conversation. As a closing, Mustafa, what's your, you know, final tip before we wrap up?
Oh, wow. It's so dramatic. I have to come up with these are my final words, man. Now I'm nervous. Everyone's hanging on the tip of my tongue. Listen, you know, it's a personal tip, right? Because it affects, like I said, I think personal and business life are the same, right? There's same principles, but just be nice, you know, be kind to people, keep it real. Those are really the only two things that you can do. You know, if you bullshit someone, at some point they're just going to get out. You know, it's going to be a waste of everyone's time. So this took many mistakes and many years for me to learn that. But just be cool. You know, that's basically it. That's my bumper sticker for you.
I'm gonna add to that slightly. So I would say, just be authentic. You know, sometimes it's not easy, but just be you. Let's focus on being the best version of ourselves rather than the second-rate version of somebody else.
But Saahil, don't you think that's unauthentic? Because you just copied what I said, basically. That's what I was saying. I was saying authentic. This is what happens when you invite your friend on this thing. I'm just going to, you know, bust your chops publicly.
Koita. What can I say?
I love you, man. Everything you've done for our company has been amazing. So thank you for that. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Okay. I wish everyone a wonderful day, evening, night, wherever in the world you are, and see you next week.
Bye.